again. Another yes or no question. This is one that's been around for a long time and is current at the moment. The question is capitalism desirable? Well, maybe a little historic perspective. In 1867, Karl Marx produced his seminal work on economics and social conflict, as it turned out, called Das Kapital, German, obviously, for capital. and in it, he indicated that the way capitalism works is that the owners of production grow rich through the exploitation of labor. And of course, the only solution to that is for those who are being exploited to seize the means of production and manage it in their own interests. Thus, we have communism really arose from that. So, in any case, that idea of the exploitation of labor and the evil of capitalism has lived on. It pops up from time to time in movements, demonstrations, riots, books, conferences, courses in universities, and so forth. And in recent years, of course, we've had anti-globalization movements and anti-Wall Street movements, all different variations on the theme of opposition to capitalism. So there's a lot of emotion behind all of this, and as one can see every once in a while when the large-scale demonstrations occupy Trafalgar Square or Wall Street. So let's try and find out what the pros and cons are. Some would say, thank goodness for capitalism. It's made us rich and powerful, and what would we couldn't do without it. Whereas others say it's an evil exploitation of people, and we should get rid of it. So let's look at the arguments. The yes arguments are, yes, it is desirable. Well, to begin with, I guess the obvious point is that capitalism is a system that rewards efficiency. The marketplace decides whose products, whose services are successful and whose aren't. And in the course of that kind of process, it weeds out the inefficient. The market itself decides, customers decide whether a product is superior to that of the competition, and competition basically makes all our lives better by producing better products for us, and ultimately at a lower price. So that's the basic argument based on supply and demand. It is certainly efficient. Number two, in so doing, it creates wealth. It creates tax revenue, both for the owners of production and for those whose labor is being employed in the process, and it thus enables social programs, the funding of government, and so forth. Government doesn't get its money out of the air. It comes from the taxation of wages and profits, and as such, it's responsible for all of the good or bad, for that matter, that governments do. Furthermore, it's pretty obvious when you look at those countries that have gone down a different route, which have followed more of a Marxist, Leninist, communist role, notably like China up until about 25 years ago, the Soviet Union, Venezuela, Cuba, Eastern Europe, Eastern Germany. They've all pretty much failed. And the reason they failed is that the alternative system, the theoretical turning over the means of production to the workers doesn't work because, of course, the workers, after the means of production have been taken away from the owners, wind up in the hands of new owners. And they exploit the process for their own means and then decide what it is gets produced. As a result, products are inferior. Someone told me once that there was a gigantic factory in the old Soviet Union that made all the shoes for the population. There was no competition. There were no alternative sources of shoes. It was just this one factory that made all the shoes. And you can imagine they weren't really terrific. So that's a kind of an illustration of the problem. Capitalism, in its search for making an appeal to markets and to consumer choice, stimulates innovation and thus opportunity for people, and as such is a forward-looking positive force in the world. It looks for improvement, for betterment, for new ideas. And, what's wrong with that? I mean, where would we be without the scientific advances of the last century? Well, some would say we would be better off because they'd prefer us to go back to a kind of a primitive life. But for the most part, most people don't agree with that, and I don't either. Of course, admittedly, left unfettered, capitalists will seek to dominate markets, to eliminate competition, so as to seize the financial benefits of high market share and dominance in a marketplace. And for that reason, in most Western countries, there are mechanisms to stop that, to diminish it. We have government agencies in the U.S., the Federal Trade Commission, in Britain, the Monopolies and Mergers Commission, and so forth. So there are ways to deal with excess, and at the same time enjoying the fruits of the capitalist process. So it's a kind of a constant battle between the kind of policing the understandable excessive demand, one could even say greed on the part of the capitalists, to produce ever more and ever better products and dominate markets and so forth. So there have to be some rules, and they seem to work. So, why worry about it? So in sum, capitalists and their means of production produce and sell and market what people want. And if one objects to the products that are made available in the marketplace, blame the people who are buying them, not the producers. The only way a capitalist survives is to meet the needs of the marketplace and produce things people want. It's as simple as that, and the system works. Okay, well, those are the positive arguments in favor of capitalism, claiming that it's a desirable mechanism. Let's look at the negatives. Let's look at the reasons why people say it is not a desirable system. Okay, number one, the system actually works too well, and it produces great wealth, and that eventually leads to grotesque inequality in income and wealth. It is said that in America, the wealth of the three richest men, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, their wealth is equal to the total wealth of the bottom 50% of the population. Well, that's reached kind of crazy proportions, and it's really, by any measure, an undesirable state of affairs, simply because of what the people on the bottom are missing out on. Number two, it does promote excessive consumption and the production and availability of products that people don't need. Planned obsolescence is part of the game to keep the products flowing and to continue to stimulate a kind of an artificial demand. You look at the successive generations of iPhones, for instance. Who really needs those things? But they're very expensive. They consume a lot of resource. They're certainly enriching the owners of Apple and Alphabet. Is that ABC? What do they call it now? And as a consequence of that, it's leading to some unpleasant social kind of divide. Furthermore, this kind of excessive consumption eventually leads to a kind of damaging of the environment. Too many resources are being consumed to manufacture all these products, and eventually the price has to be paid. These situations cause companies to lie about what's really going on. They lie about, deny climate change, deny that they're polluting the air, etc., etc. But the environmental consequences can be very great. One has only to look at the state of air in cities like Delhi and Beijing, where the capitalist system at work in both countries, simply to produce more and more goods for more and more customers, has resulted in cities that are virtually unlivable. Delhi, in particular, is the most polluted city in the world, and they say that typically the air quality situation in Delhi, the pollution exists at a level 20 times that of the upper limit of acceptability as decreed by the World Health Organization. So it can result in natural horrors. We know, of course, about big oil spills and of course about the whole fossil fuel story and its impact on climate change. So the result of excessive consumption, the very success of the capitalist system, is gradually making our planet less livable. Finally, the disparities in income that we've referred to earlier themselves perpetuate a lack of opportunity for people. Poverty diminishes people's access to superior education, and unpleasant and even unhealthy living standards actually have an impact on health and one's ability to prosper in the world. So there's a lot of negative consequences of unfettered capitalism. Well, pretty strong and emotive arguments on both sides of this debate, I'd say. Well, what's my take on it? Well, my take on it is we have to start out with the fact that whatever its bad effects, as an economic system, capitalism works. And in fact, the people who are most adamantly against capitalism and advocate socialist, communist forms of government always base it seems, on income and wealth inequality, not that any such system works better. So as a starting point, I say, let's make the system work better and more responsibly. Let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. The need for continual caution and monitoring of behavior, which clearly can become irresponsible and even immoral at times, is necessary. And there are mechanisms for doing it. Those mechanisms have to be operated efficiently and out of the reach of vested interests and presidents who are unabashedly uninterested in some of these issues. So a constant care has to be taken to make sure that the constraints are being observed. And furthermore, particularly in this age of coronavirus, we must be a lot more honest, responsible, and uncorrupt in administering our tax systems, our tax both on assets as well as on income. In many countries, certainly the one I'm speaking in, and in the U.S. as well, the whole process of taxing very high incomes and rich is bordering on criminal. It is dishonest. It is in the hands of people who are looking after their own interests and parties, and that's something that's worth fighting for. Okay, well, oh dear, I've probably stirred up a hornet's nest with that one, but in any case, if you liked it, give me a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, suggest any further ideas you may have along these lines or any other for that matter. And I'll see you at the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.